You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. And today, Kansas issues a statewide report on housing needs. We'll tell you what this means for Southeast Kansas.
Watching the rain roll in, so our waiting game just about over. We'll not only break down what to anticipate for today, but look ahead to the New Year's weekend as well. The latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, Hall of Fame coach John Madden passes away at the age of 85. We'll have a look back on his legendary career, all that and more coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Bronte Sorotsky. Authorities in Elk County, Kansas identified the 2 people killed last Thursday outside a home in Longton. The KBI and Elk County Sheriff's Office says the victims are Robert Stricker and Dwayne Smith of Longton. Authorities say Stricker and Smith were shot, and the person they believe to be the shooter died from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. The investigation is ongoing. Kansas releases its statewide housing needs assessment. The report says some of the key factors impacting housing in Southeast Kansas are housing values, low wages, housing demand, and lack of modern rental opportunities. Pittsburgh City Manager Darren Hall says he's aware of the challenges facing the region and his community. Hall says he knows there are issues the city faces for growth, including the ability to retain workers who commute.
You know, having a good place to eat, a quality place to eat, something that's a little different when your family does have a chance to get together. You don't have to, go to the grocery store and make it at home. You can just pop out somewhere. I think those are all a big part of having a huge impact on a family and letting them feel like Pittsburgh's a place for them.
There's a lot of information available in the report, and it's broken up into 2 parts, a statewide review and a regional assessment. We've put links to both in this story over at KOAMnewsnow.com. Governor Stitt and legislative leaders say despite record high revenue available to spend next year, they expect most agency budgets to remain flat. A state panel led by Stitt learned there will be more than $10 billion available to spend for the fiscal year that begins July 1st. But Stitt and Senate Appropriations Committee Chairman Roger Thompson said after the meeting they want to keep at least $2 billion in reserves. The legislature last year appropriated about $8.3 billion in spending and set aside more than $700 million in savings. On Tuesday, Freeman Health System unveiled new renovations to its hospital in Neosho, Missouri. Officials say the hospital's emergency department has been updated from top to bottom to be able to treat more infectious disease patients. New additions to the department include several negative pressure isolation rooms, a negative pressure triage room, a new nurses station, and a new HVAC system.
Improve efficiency to be able to turn this room more quickly, to be able to move patients through more quickly, but most importantly, to be able to place patients who need to be in an isolation room in an appropriate area to deliver care.
In total, the renovations cost $1.5 million. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt says he probably will not get a COVID-19 booster shot, even though health experts are encouraging everyone who is vaccinated to do so. Stitt says he's perfectly healthy and that his doctor hasn't told him he needs it. Last year, Stitt was the nation's first governor to confirm he contracted COVID-19. He got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in March. Building Legos can be a great way for kids to think creatively and to have fun. So the Joplin History and Mineral Museum is hosting a holiday-themed Lego camp. Campers spend a few hours a day playing Lego holiday games, competing in holiday-themed events, and making Lego-inspired snacks.
Everything is a Lego theme in some way. So we do Lego movies, we do Lego crafts, we do like just imagination activities. So for instance, like the kids are building a new vehicle for Santa.
The camp continues tomorrow, but all spots are booked. The Parks and Rec Department does plan to host more camps in the future. Someone could kick off the new year as a multi-millionaire. The Powerball has hit its 3rd highest jackpot of the year. There were no winners Monday night. That means the estimated jackpot increases to $441 million. The The next Powerball drawing is Wednesday. If someone wins, they could receive a lump sum cash out of $317.5 million, or choose to receive the entire $441 million in 30 payments made over 29 years. Winning the Powerball jackpot has become harder since 2015. That's when the lottery increased the amount of balls players choose their numbers from, making it easier to win smaller prizes but harder to win big ones.
Begging the question, Ms. Saratsky, will you be partaking in buying a ticket?
You know, I think I bought my first one like when I turned 18.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I can do this now, but not a big lottery ticket person. I don't know, but what about you? Do you buy them? Are you gonna partake?
Bought one in my entire life, and I'm older than you.
Yes.
I've bought one. I will always give credit to one of my favorite clerks at a Fort Scott convenience store, who simply looked at me one day and said, "You can't win if you don't play."
There you go. I mean,
I still didn't buy one that day.
well,
I don't know. I think wrapping up 2021, maybe I will.
you have a few more days to do so.
You know what? You may have just talked me into it.
All right. Well.
And Carrie,
Oh,
I will
yeah.
buy you a restaurant. You can make all the spaghetti carbonara you want.
Yes, it's a win-win situation for all of us then.
All right, I tell you what, we've kind of won the lottery temperature-wise when it comes to this month of December. We're going to end up having the warmest December on record, recorded at Joplin Regional Airport. Here's where we start right now with the heavy cloud cover. That blue right there, that's not actually touching the ground. That's from the old sweeping radar, but we are seeing everything that's moved out of southern Oklahoma from this morning creep closer and closer to us. The storm tracks icons there, that's nothing severe, just kind of gives you a general idea about how this rain system is moving, and that's what it is. It's rain showers. We haven't picked up any lightning or thunder with it at all. Joplin sits at 40 degrees right now, a little bit of a wind chill in effect, only feels like it's 34. Luckily, these communities up to our northwest, Chanute, Neodesha, Yates Center, Iola dropping down to 27. This area is going to stay dry, and that's a big factor, seeing as how it's below the freezing mark. And then if you take I-44 and drop down to the south, we'll see the majority of the rain. Going to roll mid-40s, so that's absolutely fine. This cold front is going to play a factor for us here by the time we get to the new year. Our weather trend for today, though, still abnormally warm. That's going to be a good 10 to 12 degrees above average for this time of year. As the rain sprints through, should be done by about 1 o'clock this afternoon. Clears off to the east. A dry Thursday, and then Bronte. Stick with us, because coming up here in just a little bit, we've got rain for New Year's Eve. We've got a massive cold front and possibly snow for New Year's Day.
Thanks, Michael. We'll have to see what's coming up. Up next, many Americans reported drinking more during the pandemic. Now an app aims to help those people mindfully address their motivation for drinking. And later, we'll meet a Kansas City, Kansas man who will receive a 3D printed pelvis. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14.
We got work to do. The stars.
Americans report drinking more during the pandemic, and now more people are trying to cut back on their alcohol use. Changing behavior isn't easy, but new apps are trying to help with a focus on mindful drinking. Bradley Blackburn has more.
Like so many Americans, Kathy from Utah found she was drinking more during the pandemic. So earlier this year, the wife and mother of two decided to make a change.
I would notice it and not feel good the next day, and just I take care of so many other parts of my life and my body that I'm like, why am I not doing this too?
In January, she started using an app from the startup Sunnyside, logging and reflecting on how she uses alcohol.
I still want to be able to enjoy my limit of wine, and I'm kind of learning what that is.
Women have seen the highest spikes in pandemic drinking, reporting a 41% increase in heavy drinking episodes.
We're seeing a lot of stress drinking.
And Sunnyside CEO Nick Allen says women make up 70% of their users.
Mothers, especially around the challenges of dealing with kids and work and household.
It's one of several alcohol reduction apps aimed at women's wellness. In an Instagram ad, this app promises better skin by drinking less. The goal is not necessarily sobriety, but mindful drinking, something doctors say can be beneficial.
you're putting in time and energy every time you open the application and you log the data from the day.
Dr. Colin Reif says cutting back can have real health benefits, improving sleep and heart health, and apps can be a good first step.
And the important thing is, if it's not working, be honest with yourself and, enter a higher level of care.
Kathy, do you feel better?
Yes, I do.
Kathy says it's working for her.
You feel better just from the moment that you know you're going to take control of your life.
She says she's living fully while drinking less. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Nothing but net. This Washington, D.C. teacher went viral after she sank a full-court basketball shot and made it look easy. Kathleen Fitzpatrick, known as Miss Fitz, promised her third grade class a hot chocolate party if she made the shot. When it went in, the kids went crazy, and so did people around the world. Fitzpatrick says she's heard from people in Germany, Spain, and the United Kingdom. Fitzpatrick has been playing basketball most of her life, including in college. She says she can't wait to hear other bet ideas from her students when they return from break.
Hold on, Dylan, keep it. Boom! Oh, that's great. It's the kids that make it.
I know. Oh my gosh.
That is great. For those of you that may follow Rex Chapman on Twitter, you'll notice that he put up a shot of him. He put up a video clip of him making a shot when he was in the NBA yesterday. And Rex Chapman does much more in basketball now, but I hope I see that on Rex's timeline there, because that is tremendous.
Yeah.
Look at those kids.
Good for them. Now they get their hot chocolate party.
And I guess it doesn't surprise. I was thinking about, well, we roll on everything on our phones these days, because I was just thinking, wow, the wherewithal of somebody to have the phone rolling when she launches it. But I guess that's almost the norm, I guess,
really
anymore.
Is.
But I'm glad it was captured, and I'm glad people around the world get a chance to watch that, because that will warm your morning right there.
I think the reaction is just the best part. Not even the shot going in, but just the kids' energy.
It is, yeah. The kids make the video. That is great. All right, Bronte, let's take a look at our rain, see what we've got cooking here as we put the storm tracks on, just to give you an idea. And I don't want to alarm anybody. I don't want you to think that that's anything severe. It's just kind of an idea about where this thing is headed. And the important part is it's not working from due south to north. It is taking a northeasterly track, kind of skirting right along 44 right now. Now we're starting to see it make its way into northwest Arkansas as well. It'll stay just as shower activity, not going to have any thunder or lightning, and certainly not as widespread as what we had yesterday either. 40 degrees over 7th and Rangeline. Still waiting on the northwestern section of southeast Kansas to get above the freezing mark. We've been able to stay mid-40s for most south of I-44. I want to point out our daily almanac, because the average high this time of year would be 45. We'll be 10 to 12 degrees above that. And we will end up with the warmest December on record by the time it's all said and done. That being said, we still do have a wind chill in effect. As low as 19 degrees is what it feels like right now in Yates Center. Everything following the jet stream, second consecutive day that we haven't had really any change in the jet, but still, it's going to come in from the southwest, gives us warmer temperatures. So there we are for today. Thursday we dry out. Let's talk about the cold front that's going to get us for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. New Year's Eve, it begins in the afternoon. It'll come in the form as rain. We're going to be up around 60 degrees for New Year's Eve. And then for New Year's Day, shortly after we turn the clock into 2022, we're going to see everything from a wintry mix early in the morning to even some snowflakes later on. And tell you what, we're going to be talking about taking care of the outdoor plumbing as well, because look at this overnight low, single digits in between Saturday and Sunday. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
There's a whole lot of Christmas cash up for grabs.
Legendary football coach, broadcaster John Madden has died. NFL says the 85-year-old passed away unexpectedly Tuesday morning. Andy Scholes with a look back on John Madden's life.
I have never worked a day in my life. I went from player to coach to a broadcaster, and I am the luckiest guy in the world.
Super Bowl winning coach, pioneering broadcaster, video game icon. A larger-than-life personality, John Madden was by any definition a true original. During his 30-year broadcasting career, Madden was widely considered the voice of the National Football League.
You have to attack them with the pass, and you have to attack them deep with the pass.
His passionate way of calling games with unique catchphrases,
Packers came out, they went boom, and they got 10 points.
and a love for using a telestrator helped explain the game to hardcore and casual fans across America. He called NFL games for all 4 major networks, announcing 11 Super Bowls and earning 16 sports Emmys during his time in the broadcast booth. Madden's NFL playing career was short-lived. He was drafted in 1958 by the Philadelphia Eagles, but a knee injury cut it all short. That's when he decided to try his hand at coaching, eventually becoming the youngest head coach in professional football history at the age of 33. In 1977, he led the Oakland Raiders to a Super Bowl victory and is still the franchise's all-time wins leader. Madden was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame for his coaching career in 2006.
Boom! Tough acting, acting.
Madden was a television advertiser's dream, becoming the pitch man for numerous brands.
Let me tell you, Ace is a place for me.
In 1988, Madden entered the video game world, lending his voice and name to what's now called Madden NFL.
You know, anything that goes that far, that fast, ought to have dinner and an in-flight movie.
His video game is still the most popular football video game ever, selling more than 100 million copies worldwide. Whether it was his video game, his broadcasting career, or as a Hall of Fame coach, his passion for the game is what will always be remembered.
Some of us think maybe we will be immortal, that we'll live forever, but when you really think about it, we're not going to be. But I say this, through this bust, with these guys, in that hall, we will be forever.
Of course, John Madden, known for his broadcasting work with the legendary Pat Summerall. The two would work together for 22 years, culminating with being the #1 broadcast team right here on Fox. Be back with this morning's 4-State Hero right after this.
It's double down days at Auto by Reid.
It's time to honor today's 4-State hero. Sergeant Jamie Wilson joined the United States Army in 2004. He fought in the Iraq War. His hometown, Quapaw, Oklahoma. We thank you, Jamie Wilson, today's 4-State hero. A Kansas man's cancer diagnosis almost cost him a leg until doctors suggested a first-of-its-kind surgery in the state of Kansas, a new 3D printed titanium pelvis. Joe Chiodo has the story.
Absolutely. It can be hard to beat a view like this.
In Lone Jack, Missouri, Kurt Meelan is adjusting to a new way of life.
We moved out here, I think, around October of last year.
Built a chicken house, and there's nothing he can't do or he won't try to do.
He and his wife Alicia's new 5 acres of land take a lot of work and a lot of patience. Much like another adjustment that Kurt's taking in stride, step by step.
So really, it's almost a new lease on life. It's a very rare cancer. I think they said happens in less than 4% of people that have cancer.
A soccer coach for 10 years in Blue Valley, Kurt became concerned a few years ago when pain would flare up on the field doing drills and running. He learned he had chondrosarcoma of his pelvis and hip.
So the option was they take off your leg or they take off your leg. So either option wasn't acceptable to me. The response to that was, there's got to be something else.
A father of 5 and an active guy, Kurt refused to lose a limb. That had his doctor at the University of Kansas Health, Dr. Kyle Sweeney, searching high and low for another option to save Kurt's leg and life.
It's actually a 3D model.
He found that solution in a 3D printer. Dr. Sweeney would implant a titanium 3D printed partial pelvis into Kurt by melding a CT scan and an MRI together using precise imaging. But such a surgery had never been done before in the state of Kansas.
I immediately jumped on it and I said, well, I'll if it's the first one that KU ever did, I'll be your guy.
It sounded crazy, but yeah, it was neat to watch.
A big risk that came with a big reward. Kurt is officially the first patient in Kansas to receive a 3D printed pelvis. He can now walk using a crutch.
That is a fantastic feeling. It's absolutely incredible what you can do with it, because if you can imagine it, you can 3D print it. And if you can image it, you can recreate anatomy that's specific to an individual.
Such advancements will only become more common in the future.
There are options now through technology,
giving people like Kurt a second shot at life.
It was the best case scenario, better than expected. Very, very, very grateful for that.
Doctors are hopeful advancements in 3D printing technology will continue to improve, eventually allowing 3D printers right inside hospitals. Another half hour of news and weather just ahead, coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Michael sits down with Jesse Gilmore from K-State Extension to talk about a popular holiday flower. And one video game company settles a gender discrimination lawsuit for $100 million. We'll have the details when we return. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
Experience what Kia has. The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:30. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Authorities in Elk County, Kansas identified the 2 people killed last Thursday outside a home in Longton. The KBI and Elk County Sheriff's Office says the victims are Robert Stricker and Dwayne Smith of Longton. Authorities say Stricker and Smith were shot, and the person they believe to be the shooter died from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. The investigation is ongoing. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt says he probably will not get a COVID-19 booster shot, even though health experts are encouraging everyone who is vaccinated to do so. Stitt says he's perfectly healthy and that his doctor hasn't told him he needs it. Last year, Stitt was the nation's first governor to confirm he contracted COVID-19. He got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in March. Governor Stitt and legislative leaders say despite record high revenue available to spend next year, they expect most agency budgets to remain flat. A state panel led by Stitt learned there will be more than $10 billion available to spend for the fiscal year that begins July 1st. But Stitt and Senate Appropriations Committee Chairman Roger Thompson said after the meeting they want to keep at least $2 billion in reserves. The legislature last year appropriated about $8.3 billion in spending and set aside more than $700 million in savings. A rare albino Jaguarundi cub has been rescued in Colombia, with vets working around the clock to bring it to good health. The rare female species was discovered in the Aburra Valley metropolitan area in northwestern Colombia. It is the first case of an albino Jaguarundi reported in Colombia. After receiving primary medical attention, the rare wildcat will be transferred to a conservation park in Medellin. Jaguarundis are a type of puma native to North and South America. They are solitary animals who only meet fellow Jaguarundis when mating.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
It's my favorite animal.
Really?
Yes, the jaguar is my favorite, and not the albino jaguars. that thing is absolutely beautiful. I've never seen an albino jaguar in person. But yes, the jaguar is my favorite animal.
Yeah.
Tulsa Zoo has a wonderful display with an enclosure that you can actually walk down, and sometimes you'll get lucky, and if they're sleeping, they'll be sleeping right by the window. You get a true appreciation of the power and the beauty of those animals when you get that close to them.
Man.
All right, let's jump to the Skywatch Storm Tracker, Bronte, because we are getting closer and closer, just about on time, from when it started on the other side of the Red River. And so it's been very, very consistent as far as its movement goes. So here in about the next 45 minutes, it'll be in through northeast Oklahoma. We're starting to see a little bit there in northwest Arkansas. And every now and then a little pop of green, some light sprinkles, have shown up there in the southern portion of southwest Missouri. 40 degrees is where we stand right now in Joplin. Let's do this in reverse order. We'll hit the 7-day forecast first because I do want to point out we got a big cold front that we're going to talk about here in just a little bit that'll be here just in time for New Year's Day. But before we do that, let's talk about our Wednesday. There's that rain that sprints up, should be done by about 1 o'clock this afternoon. A little bit of sunshine and temperatures in the mid-50s. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Are you looking?
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News. It is a Wildcat Wednesday. We're fortunate enough to be joined by Jesse Gilmore, horticulture expert for K-State Research Extension. Jesse, number one, I hope you had a marvelous Christmas.
Oh, it went very well.
And number two, thank you so much for your time this morning.
No problem. It's good to be back in studio.
It is wonderful to be back in studio. We are here to talk about what I believe is still our country's most popular potted plant during the holiday season, the poinsettia. Is that?
Not only is it the most popular potted plant during the holiday season, it's actually the most popular potted plant, period.
I didn't know that.
Last year, over 35 million poinsettias were sold. It is the #1 seller as far as number of plants goes. As far as value goes, orchids slightly outpace it in terms of
Makes sense.
cost.
Just, cost-wise. But number-wise, this is #1.
Yep, and almost all of the sales will be in November and December.
In between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Well, but now we've got these throughout the studio. You've got these at home, and we're trying to #1. We want to take care of them because they're absolutely beautiful. But we've got to address the elephant in the room because they're fatal. I can't.
Not quite. So,
and folks, this is a serious question because it is a common conception that for young children and especially for pets, that poinsettias can be fatal.
It gets a very bad rap for that. I have to say it, that legend goes back to when a child was found dead in the southern United States next to a wild poinsettia plant. They assumed that it was because they ingested the poinsettia. Poinsettias are a member of the spurge family, which means that they're going to exude a milky white sap from the plant tissue when it's damaged. And while that is toxic to some extent, it really depends on the species of spurge that you're looking at. Some species are fatal when consumed. Poinsettias, they've done research and shown that the toxic elements of the sap will not be enough to kill a person, even when ingesting more than a pound of poinsettia foliage, which I don't think anyone's going to be ingesting.
And honestly, if my dog goes through a plant, he or she may get an upset stomach.
Yeah, and this legend is so widespread that advocates for the plant have taken to eating the plant live in front of people to, I guess, show off its non-toxic properties. I would not go quite that far because even if it's not going to kill you, it's still going to make you pretty sick and give you some gastrointestinal issues that you don't want.
Let's not test it at home, but also too important to point out when Jesse's talking about this, this is a legend that's more than 100 years old.
Yep.
It's amazing that it's persisted that long. So now that I know it's safe, it's safe to handle, I'm not going to ingest it. How do I keep this thing going? Because I know that in some regions of the world, while we associate it with perhaps Christmas, in some regions it's associated with Easter as well.
Yep. So down in Mexico, where the plant is native, it can get up to 15 feet tall.
My goodness.
A small tree rather than just the potted plant we're familiar with. To keep this in your home over the winter, you would need to put it near a light source. And poinsettias are pretty interesting in that they need a very specific day-night cycle in order to get the color that you would see here, for example. They need about 14 hours of darkness during October when most of them are growing. Luckily, for most people who buy poinsettias every year and don't try and keep poinsettias throughout multiple years, they won't need to worry about that because most of the color will already have been developed in the greenhouses where the plants were grown. But if you are trying to keep your poinsettia for multiple years, which you can do, you will need around October 1st to start thinking about keeping it in a very dark room. Even residual light from like a street light that's shining in through a window where you keep it. Yep, that will delay its color development. So it needs complete darkness, and you need to be pretty diligent with that if you want the color to develop.
To keep these alive, is it best, and I want to go down the road as it begins to warm up, is it best to keep it potted inside the house, or can I go replant it outside?
You can do either. Usually for most poinsettias that you're going to buy, you're going to need to repot it in the spring before temperatures get up to the point where you would want to maybe think about putting it outside. Because they're native to Mexico, they can handle a lot hotter temperatures than we get here. So they would succeed outdoors during the summer. You want to make sure that it's put in a area that gets a lot of direct sunlight and is protected from the wind. So south side of houses is usually pretty good.
So my question to you, if they're good during the summer, how sensitive are they to the cold?
they're very sensitive. When you're storing the plant in your house, usually you'll want to put it in a south-facing window to get that direct sunlight that it needs. You have to make sure that the leaves are not touching the glass, because that can send it into a cold shock. Usually you will need to move it away from the glass in the window during nighttime when it gets colder, or draw drapes in order to prevent drafts from getting to the plant.
I got one final one. Actually, I got two final ones before we get out of here, because your knowledge of this plant just it blows me away. As somebody who has a tough time keeping plants alive, the question that I always lean on is, how often do I water it? How do I check the soil and the moisture?
So yeah, overwatering is the #1 thing that kills most
So you can't
house
overwater
plants.
them?
Yeah, and poinsettias in particular, because they're native to an area that doesn't get a ton of rain, they are going to be pretty sensitive to overwatering. So what you want to do is you want to put your thumb in the soil down to your first knuckle. That's about 1 inch. And if the top inch of the soil is dry, it needs lukewarm water. And you want to make sure that the water runs out of the pot, essentially. You don't want it sitting in like a saucer that would collect extra water. So you just take it to the sink, turn on the sink to a lukewarm temperature. You don't want to shock it with cold.
Because we're going to shock it, yeah.
And you don't want to have too hot of water either. But let it run through. Let it sit in the sun for the amount of time that it needs, and test it every couple of days or so. You're not going to need to water it too terribly often, especially if you're keeping it between 65 and 75 degrees, which is about where you want it during the day, and during the night you want it about 60 to 65 degrees.
About room temperature in the house.
Yep. Yeah, unless you're keeping your room very hot during the winter.
One final question before we get out of here, because of your extensive knowledge of this particular plant. How and why did you get so involved and so knowledgeable about the poinsettia in particular?
Oh, okay. We might not have time for that, but when I was at K-State in the greenhouse operations management class, we were responsible for growing the poinsettias that we would eventually use in the winter poinsettia sale for the horticulture department. And each of us in the class was responsible for tracking the, I guess, measurements of a certain variety. And my variety was premium ice crystal, and I love that variety because it's not necessarily the solid red that most people think of when they think of poinsettias. There's a lot of different colors now: white, cream. I think there might even be a yellow variety. But premium ice crystal is a variegated variety, so the leaves start red on the outside, and then as you go in, they get a lighter pink-white mixture. So it's kind of a frosted look. And I fell in love.
That's what got you started?
Yep. I fell in love with that. And we learned so much about poinsettias because it is the most valuable, well, the most sold plant in the United States.
Jesse, because of you, all of us have learned a ton about this plant. And now you've given us the impetus to, instead of saying, oh, it's a Christmas decoration, now we all know how to keep them going throughout the course of multiple years.
Yep.
Jesse Gilmore, horticulture expert from the Kansas State Research and Extension Office, joining us on this Wildcat Wednesday. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And it's great to see you, my man.
Yep.
We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
Riot Games is settling a discrimination and harassment lawsuit for $100 million. The Hill reports more than 2,000 female employees filed a class action lawsuit against the video game company in 2018. They accused Riot practiced systemic sexism and treated them unfairly. Based on the settlement agreement, at least $80 million will go towards compensating workers. Another $18 million will go toward funding diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. The Los Angeles Supreme Court still has to approve the settlement. T-Mobile gets hit with another cyber attack, with data and access at risk. Reports say a small number of customer accounts of the tech and mobile media giant were hit by a recent cyber attack. The attack happened in two forms: a SIM swapping attack, where mobile SIM cards that require authentication to network access were worked around, or customer data was exposed, or both. A breach in August exposed data for 50 million T-Mobile customers. T-Mobile says it's taking immediate steps to help affected individuals. Expect higher gas prices next year. According to Gas Buddy, gasoline prices could reach $4 a gallon by the summer. The prediction does not sync up with the current trend. which has seen gas prices coming down. On Monday, the national average for a gallon was $3.29, down 13 cents from the peak $3.42 on November 8th. According to AAA, however, gas prices will go up because refineries in both Louisiana and Texas are down several refineries and demand is up. That combination will strain supplies, and refinery capacity fell to a 6-year low in 2021. We'll be right back with more after this, but first, let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell.
The curtain's coming down.
Former United States Senate Democratic Majority Leader Harry Reid, Nevada's longest-serving member of Congress, has died. Deborah Alfarone has more on Reid's story and life and the legacy he left in Washington, D.C.
Harry Reid's wife, Landra, says the former Democratic stalwart of the Senate died peacefully, surrounded by friends after a courageous 4-year battle with pancreatic cancer. When Reid delivered his farewell speech on the Senate floor in 2016, he said his high school sweetheart was a force behind his life achievements.
Whatever success I had in my educational life, my life as a lawyer, my life as a politician, including my time in Congress, is directly attributable to Landra, my wife.
In a statement announcing his death, his wife said he was a devout man and deeply loyal friend. Reid, a former boxer turned lawyer, was known for his tough approach when it came to deal-making on Capitol Hill. His motto went, "I would rather dance than fight, but I know how to fight." Reid retired after an accident left him blind in one eye. In 2018, he revealed he was undergoing treatment for cancer. About 2 weeks ago, Las Vegas officials named the city's international airport after him.
Thank you for friendship, support over the years.
Harry Reid was 82. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
Reid's wife says arrangements for his funeral will be announced in coming days. Harry Reid's wife, according to his autobiography, also saved the family from a car bomb back when he ran the Nevada Gaming Commission. Our Skywatch storm tracker has the rain beginning to finally make its way into our counties. What we're seeing here, and I'm going to go boots on the ground and our tower cams, not a whole lot of that is able to hit the ground as of yet, but we're seeing everything spread that worked up from southern Oklahoma now make its way through the Tulsa area, just about into our highlighted counties. Current conditions over 7th and Range Line, where so far the intersection has remained dry, sit at 41 degrees, and luckily, precipitation is going to stay out of the northwest where we have the freezing temps. We've been as low as 25 degrees early this morning. We'll make it up into the 50s, but first off, we got to let this rain jot right through. And that's about the extent of it. So certainly not as widespread as yesterday. Should be done by about 1 p.m. And after it does that, not as much sunshine as we had. We'll get a peak every now and then. So let's go ahead and turn our attention to the New Year's Eve weekend. On Friday, New Year's Eve itself, afternoon rain begins to develop. Not a whole lot of thunderstorm activity, mainly showers, but the big difference is going to be this cold front right here along the dividing line. Rain's going to last through the evening into the new year. Early Saturday morning, there's your wintry mix, your freezing rain that then turns into snow, and our temperatures just absolutely plummet throughout Saturday into Sunday night to the point where single-digit overnight lows to start 2022. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Are you in need?
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. Spiking case numbers and long lines for COVID-19 tests are marking the end of another year of battle against the pandemic. Massachusetts is one of at least 7 states now reporting record high daily infections. That's more cases than at any other time since the start of the pandemic. Harry Reid, the former Senate Majority Leader who spent more than 3 decades in Washington, has died. Reid was Nevada's longest-running member of Congress. The conservative Democrat was known as a tough deal-maker on Capitol Hill. His wife said Reid died peacefully after a 4-year battle with pancreatic cancer. Harry Reid was 82. Hall of Fame NFL coach John Madden, who turned broadcaster, ad pitchman, and entertainer, died yesterday morning. As coach of the Oakland Raiders, he brought the team to 7 AFC title games and 1 Super Bowl victory. John Madden was 85. And now let's check in with Michael for your final look at weather.
Now that the rain is starting to move in, it'll start as light and then become actual legitimate showers, but not going to last all day. However, if you're hanging out with us right now and you're getting ready to leave, especially if you live in the south and eastern portion of our highlighted counties, go ahead and grab the umbrella. Everybody to the northwest and mainly central portion will be clear for the rest of the day. Not too bad temperature-wise until we get to 2022. That cold front gonna rip the rug right out from underneath us.
Swans and ducks were seen gliding on an icy lake in an Ankara park last Thursday after the city was covered in snow and temperatures dropped below 0 degrees Celsius. The popular swan park is known for its swans and hosts several other bird species, such as ducks and mallards. Ankara residents rushed to take photographs of the park's picturesque winter scenes on Thursday. Expressing concern for the well-being of birds in the freezing weather, one visitor said this was the first time she had witnessed such scenes. The swans live in the ponds for year-round, being fed by municipal workers and visitors.
The vaunted Bronte puffy coat would have come in very handy with temperatures below 0 degrees Celsius.
Yes. Yeah, that is too cold for me.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for letting us put the good in your morning. We'll be back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.
There's a whole lot of